SiftPop is recorded in front of a live internet audience. How does that?
That's good. Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, 3 people discussing a movie while listening to the people talking to them inside their heads. It's SiftPop. Yes, it's SiftPop. We're going to talk some Suicide Squad. It's Aaron, not Andrew and Danae. Andrew had to take the week off from his SiftPop chair. But we do have a guru with us today. Please welcome, from Geekvolution, it's Captain Logan.
Hello, everyone!
Good to hear from you again, man. We're excited to chat with you. This happens every Friday on Mixler, right around 10:30. It is available to listen to live or to download later in your podcast feed, unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks.
Patrons get those perks. Every week, we'll be joined by a pop culture guru to chat about movies, television, and whatever else is on our pop culture minds. And today, it is Suicide Squad. There is so much to talk about with this movie. But before we get into that, of course, we start with Do We Care? Danae's going to read some pop culture headlines. Cap and I will decide if it's something we want to talk about.
And if you don't want to talk about it, I make you talk about it anyway. Why Mike Birbiglia is right about the MPAA's hypocritical rating system.
Ooh.
Do we care about the rating system and his opinions?
Well, Birbiglia's got a really great sense of humor, so I imagine what he had to say was pretty funny. But I don't know, the MPAA hypocritical ratings, like, that's nothing new. I think we've all known that for a while. What did he have to say? I guess I do care. What about you, Cap?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who that is, but that's the thing I made videos about. It's definitely messed up. I think everyone knows that.
Yeah, I think that's what caught my attention, too. Maybe it's just getting more attention because he tweeted about it. His tweet said, Suicide Squad has machine guns, killings, and bombings and got a PG-13 rating. At Don't Think Movie gets an R because adults smoke pot. Confusing. So I think that there's just some attention in the pop culture media about kind of his particular opinions about it.
Did you say pop culture or pot culture?
I don't know.
I think both are valid.
But both are valid. So I think that it's just another opportunity to take a look at the ratings and why it's so important that, you know, if you're going to go see it and you feel like maybe you shouldn't go see it. I didn't go see Pan's Labyrinth because I decided to read up about it. There was something about it. I was like, I don't know. And I'm thankful that I read up on it and didn't go. Because I think that one movie would have messed me up pretty bad.
I think Suicide Squad
is
a good one to bring back how ridiculous the ratings are.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was going to bring that up when we talked about Suicide Squad.
Well, let's go ahead and do that part, you know, just right now, just to say, originally Suicide Squad, I think, was supposed to be rated R. They were going to do an R-rated Suicide Squad movie. Or was it always supposed to be PG-13?
It was always PG-13. They made a big deal out of how they wanted to streamline their brand, which is hilarious when you look at the movies they've made so far. But people really expected Suicide Squad to maybe be rated R, and they were like, nah, it's got to be PG-13. People were worried about it being watered down. And then the movie David Ayer made before it got chopped up and stuff, I think probably would have been pushing that R a lot harder. I think it's really interesting that he wrote that article and is talking about that because it was way tamer than it would have been.
Wow, that's crazy because I thought it pushed the PG-13, especially the Harley Quinn stuff was really, there's just something so, I'm going to say sensual, but, you know, even sexual about her performance and that character, and I don't know, it was...
This article is really great. There's a couple of things that it does. One, it highlights that there's other films out there that aren't going to be getting attention or wide view because it's rated R, when the kind of movie that it is far more appropriate for someone to go see at particular ages, you know.
Right.
And I think also of note, the Don't Think movie may be Mike Birbiglia's movie.
Oh, probably. I'm sure he was in that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's kind of reference later on, but I didn't actually research it. But this article on Screen Crush does a great job because it kind of brings in parentpreviews.com, which is a website that goes in, sees the movie, lets you kind of know what you're going to be getting into before you go as a parent. And it was interesting because under language it says frequent use of scatological slang. So I had to make sure I understood what scatological meant.
So it's our podcast then.
So there's drug use and language and sexual content and violence, and then it kind of describes the types of violent actions in the movie.
Maybe it's just the tone of the movie can sometimes do that too. Maybe with Suicide Squad, it's just the nihilistic tone, and just how dark some of that stuff can make you feel like it's more deserving of a harder rating. But I just think the rating system needs to go away. I think they need to replace it with content. Instead of giving it like a letter, replace it with just tell us what the content is, like a parental guidance system like that you see online, or something with like Screen It, or Common Sense is another popular one, because that's what people want to know. It's mainly for people trying to decide if they should take what age kids to go see these movies.
Yeah, I mean, some people would argue you want to make sure that kids can't get in to see rated R movies, but I'd argue that there are a lot of PG-13 movies that are just as much of a problem for kids to walk into.
Yeah, you got to...
Because that rating is such a catch-all now. Like, there are things that are more in what the PG spectrum used to be, and things that are much more into what the R spectrum used to be, that all get thrown into that rate. We have one rating now, except for R.
Yeah. And it's the system is not working. In conclusion to this, and then we'll go on to the next one, Britt Hayes, who wrote this article, ends it by saying a few sentences. She says, "So yes, Mike Birbiglia is right. The only thing offensive about his film is the rating. I doubt there are a bunch of teenagers scrambling to the theater to see Don't Think Twice this weekend. They should have the option, but that's not the point. The point is that this rating system is hypocritical, arbitrary, has become a wholly unnecessary, nebulous form of censorship that favors blockbusters and major studios over independent filmmaking."
That's true, and the word arbitrary is the one I would really emphasize. It just feels like the movies can ask for the rating they want, and find a way to get it, and it's just a broken system.
Next up on Do We Care is Star Wars theme. This is titled Star Wars TV series still has a possibility, per ABC's boss, quoting having been said, "We have had conversations." Do we care?
Absolutely, I care about anything in the Star Wars universe. I think that would be...
I'm waiting for that to actually be news. It seems like every few weeks you hear that.
I guess what's going on, according to this article, is that ABC is really investing in conversations with Lucasfilm, but it's just going to take a lot of time.
Well, it'd be Disney now, right?
Well, Lucasfilm and...
Okay, yeah.
They're still a part of that.
Right, that's true, yeah.
And Lucasfilm is known, I guess, for being even more secretive than other, like Marvel, for example, is kind of referenced here.
Yeah.
So
by a lot. Yeah.
We're only going to know that dude from ABC talked to dude from Lucasfilm, and that there are conversations being had. I think that's just they're trying to hint that it could be possible, but you're right, Captain. Like, we're probably a long way away from really knowing anything.
You're talking about like a live action TV show as opposed to like the Clone Wars and that kind of stuff. That's
needs to be a Netflix show.
Yeah,
I think that's right. I mean, doesn't everything
does not
these
need
days
to be broadcast?
Here's the thing: I've come to the conclusion that anything that is narrative
serialized?
and serialized should be a 6 to 8 episode, released at once run. Because basically,
or 13, depending on. I mean, we got a lot of 13 that's still sharp.
I agree. You can get that long, but I'm telling you, the 6 to 8 hour, like television movie idea is really attractive. And of course, England's been doing that for a long time with their series. And there's something about that length for something that's serialized that you want a conclusion to that makes a lot of sense.
I'm with you, but in this country still. Because I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying like it's still a big novelty to get half like that, and so that 13 episode model is gonna stick around for a while.
Dungy, who I think is president of ABC, Channing Dungy. Just in case you didn't know that, he was quoted as saying it would be wonderful if we could find a way to extend the brand into our programming, because I think they already do Star Wars Rebels and Revenge of the Sith. Something like that?
Revenge of the Sith?
That was a movie, though.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm confused about what they're talking about. I think they're saying that they've already got a couple...
I mean, it's the same family. ABC is owned by Disney.
Right.
Same as...
I think they're talking about their animated series in that section.
Which is on Cartoon Network.
Right, and they're wanting to kind of move it over into the other part. So, anyhow, moving on. Finally, today is Harry Potter and the Cursed Child debuts at midnight, and fans are ready. This is pop culture, right? It's just
I thought it
pop
already debuted.
Culture?
Didn't it come out this last week? I saw people in line who got it, so...
It was the end of July.
Curious Low saw it, and she said it was awful.
Oh, yeah?
She read it? Or
yeah. What's that?
She saw it?
Yeah, she saw it. She said it was really awful.
In the theater? Or the live action?
I'm so confused right now.
Okay. Well, I guess you do care.
I care to know more because Harry Potter is obviously a huge property, and I have not paid enough attention to know what's going on.
Okay.
I thought it was a book. I thought it was another
stage
Harry
play.
Potter.
It's a
no.
play.
It's a stage play, and they're publishing a book that's the script.
They published the play script.
Oh, I see.
So it's a story
the play
set
script.
19 years later. It's been 9 years since the last book, but in the story, it's 19 years after where we kind of left off.
Yeah.
And Saturday is when it released. So yeah, it's been almost a week. So
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I love that IPs are now doing more expanded universe type stuff. I've never had a problem with going back to the world of Harry Potter or anything like that. You just hope it's quality material. And
The problem is whenever this happens with plays, it's almost never good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why, but we never hear positive things about these things.
I love that
Yes,
right
Spider-Man
now.
in the dark, and or Turn Off the Dark, and then this.
It's almost as if stuff like properties should be invented for the stage, possibly. I guess it works in some cases. Like, I think of like Newsies becoming, a Broadway play, and that seeming to work very well for them. But I think it has to be with stuff that's a little kind of under the radar and maybe kind of cult classy, kind of stuff. This big stuff, for whatever reason, it makes a hard transition between kind of formats, I think.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that's just because we're thinking too much about the format. Obviously, you have to adapt to whatever the medium is you're doing, but there's this kind of, heightened sense of, now it's the theater! And, just write a story and make it a thing that you can project to audiences. I'll read you what Lo wrote about it on Facebook. She said, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child is fan fiction. Bad fan fiction. I'm so upset by how out of character everyone is.
That's rough, yeah, because you've come to love that stuff. I think one of the properties that did it really well, even though it wasn't as good as the original, was The Last Airbender. The original Last Airbender series was so good, and you love those characters, and when they decided to go back to the universe with Korra, it wasn't quite as good as The Last Airbender, but because they told a completely distinct story in that universe, that was 2 generations later or whatever, I think it allowed it to breathe a little bit more, and so you didn't have to worry about, kind of bad characterizations of characters you already know and that kind of stuff.
But of course, that's medium to the same medium.
Well, that's
and
true as
kind
well.
Of spin-off
That's true as well.
territory.
Yeah.
I mean, we're about to get a prequel to Harry Potter in movies, so we'll see what that's like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like maybe she did herself a disservice because when I'm sure in her mind these characters have advanced 20 years. So the Harry Potter we've grown to love, or the characters that we've grown to love, and I haven't read the script, so I don't really know.
Well, she didn't write it, is the thing.
Oh, I thought she did.
Well, there's
No, her name's all over it because she was consulting, but yeah, she didn't write it. So
Well, I'm
that
glad
right
we
there's
talked
your
about
problem.
it. All right, well, we're moving on.
I think we found the
That's
issue
it.
here.
Not talking about
Yeah.
that anymore. If I would have known that, I would have never brought it up. I had no idea.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Caught in a landslide, no escape from reality.
Oh, it's so good.
Can't not sing this song. Oh man, I didn't see this movie. I didn't see
Yeah.
Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
But I hate that it's now tied to this movie because I love the song so much.
Well, I think that was the...
it's tied to a lot of movies, though, right?
That's true. It's tied to Wayne's World as
Well,
well for
that's
me.
the
That's
one.
what I was going to say. I always get Wayne's World flashbacks.
Well, that's
Absolutely.
the best one.
So we're going to talk a little bit about Suicide, DC's latest entry into attempting to build a Marvel-like extended universe with all of their characters. And we've got...
If you're gonna spew into this. Sorry.
Do you just need a break for some Wayne's World quotes? We can go there.
I was holding
It's fine.
that the whole time you were talking, and I knew that if I didn't do it, it would just bother me the rest of the show.
That's fine. Do you have any more you need to get out before?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. All right. Good.
Hi, I'm in Delaware. Okay, sorry.
Apparently you did have one more.
Psycho Hose Beast.
So in Suicide Squad, we are putting together a group of villains to help save the world in trying to force the bad guys to become the good guys. It features characters like Deadshot, Harley Quinn, Boomerang, so many others from the DC universe who I'm just learning about, again, because I'm not, a comic book person. Cap, I'm really glad you're with us for this one because you know this universe so well, especially the Gotham City universe. You're such a Batman fan and knowing these characters. So I'm excited to get into some of that conversation. But before we get there, let's just talk generally. Did you like it, love it, it was okay, dislike it, or hated it? Cap, let's start with you.
I thought it was incredibly mediocre. And ultra disappointing because you can see there's a good movie in there somewhere.
I can get with that. I think there could have been a good movie in there. I would actually lean towards disliked it. And
well, Aaron, what I'm saying is I'm almost positive there was a better movie that got hacked to shreds.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
Like, Ayer made a different movie than this, and then Warner's changed it, is what it seems like.
Yeah, and I love, I always call him David Ayers. Is it Ayers? I'm not sure. But I love Fury. I love what he's done before. He's a really intelligent director. I feel like he could have made, like, it feels like almost he was perfect for the material. Like, he understands, how to make something dark that is also compelling, that is also interesting, that makes you think, those kind of things. And I just didn't see that movie here, but that is the report that I'm hearing afterwards. Because I like to go see a movie as pure as possible, and then afterwards I'll read reviews and different things like that. And man, when I got out, I did my radio review last night, and so then I went to look at some other reviews. This movie is getting trashed. I mean, just destroyed by some people, and it's just like, I don't know if it was that bad, but it was
Does
bad.
it remind you of the
Ghostbusters
thing? Because that's what happened in Ghostbusters, is the internet trashed it before it even came out.
No, this is totally different.
But that's not what happened with this.
Yeah, this is a totally different situation.
This is a totally different. Yeah, this is mainstream critics ripping it to shreds.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
With an internet that was excited, and this was one of the most anticipated movies of the year.
So do you feel like they all get, a call from each other, like, on the critics' red phone line, and it's like, guys, this is the one that we have to sacrifice this year. Get out all your angst on this movie.
If that's
go.
I'm kind of part of that group of people, like I vote in the Critics' Choice Awards. I'm in the BFCA, and I'll just say there is no red phone in my office. Well, technically there is a red phone.
There is a red phone in your office. It's
but
right
it's not
there.
connected to anything. So
he did not get that memo.
I think it's just because, and we'll talk about this for our second topic too, as we talk about kind of critical response and how that plays into what you think about a movie or whether or not you can enjoy it and those kind of things. But I think in this case, it really is just a movie that shows its manipulation. And I don't mean that in a story way. I mean that in a creation way. It has been manipulated to be a certain type of movie that doesn't seem to match the movie that the director wanted to make. Is that fair to say, Cap?
Yeah, and I feel like I feel like I can see that on the screen beyond just that being the report that's probably what happened.
Yeah.
Like the way things are especially in the editing, things look really jumbled around and put in strange places and stuff. Now, having said that, I feel like I got to get a little bit of perspective. I think one of the reasons I probably liked this more than you did is because I've had to spend a lot of time with Batman vs. Superman, and it's very difficult not to just compare it to the two movies they've made already.
Oh, sure.
And say, well, it's coherent. Like, I know what's going on most of the time, even if there are questions. Like, there's plot holes or whatever, and there's huge, weird structure choices and stuff, especially at the beginning. That is a first act that is a prologue, right? Like, we never get off the ground until about 25 minutes into the movie.
I checked my watch. It was 35 minutes.
Was it that long? Wow.
Guys, that's a bad sign. Can we just
set up people and set up people and set up people?
Well, here's the thing. Here's what Danae, go ahead. What were you going to say?
It's just a bad sign whenever you're watching a movie and you're checking your watch.
That is true.
That's never a good sign.
Well, here's what I checked my watch when that prologue was over, because it's obviously a prologue setting up all these characters we're supposed to know. And it was a reminder to me, again, and I know this is the comparison that everybody does, and I guess I just think it's natural and normal to do this, but the Marvel movies set up characters with their own movies before they put them together. And to set up all of these characters in the same movie that we're supposed to care and love about them, instead of having, I don't know, a Deadshot movie first, or, a Harley Quinn movie, or it just makes it so you have to have this 35-minute section at the beginning so that we can get the backstory we need. And
may I disagree with you and say no, we don't?
Yeah, because I mean,
no, we don't.
Maybe they thought that they needed it, and I didn't see the movie. I don't need to see the movie to say 30 minutes to set up every character is like a little mini episode kind of a feeling.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
should have released mini episodes on Hulu or Netflix.
That's an
or
idea.
Some
No, you
streamable
don't
thing,
even have to. You don't even have to go that far, and it is always bad if you need supplemental material that you have to go look at in order to appreciate the movie. But these are mostly not super complex characters. Most of them are not the kinds of people that would warrant their own films.
Okay, so that's
until we've already kind of. I mean, maybe after this, after we've like come to know them a little bit, but like. It's just a structure problem, Aaron. Like when you open, and I won't spoil too much, but when you open with flashback after flashback, and then you have other flashbacks throughout the film, I find myself wondering why we didn't go with the Deadpool model and have because the A story is not real complicated. Like why not just have that be your main set piece, and then occasionally interrupt it with a flashback for a character when that's. When that has something to do with the scene that we're watching.
And they kind of did both, right?
When it's relevant. And they were still doing that, so that should have been the structure.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. Here's my thing. Some of the only things I cared about in the movie existed because of the setup of those characters. Without giving anything away. Which I can't wait to talk spoilers on this because there's so much I do want to talk about.
But they could have given you that as it went along.
I don't know. I don't know if they could. I feel like that's the problem when you have so many characters that you're supposed to understand and know their motivation in a story. I look at like Deadpool's story and I'm like, I actually cared about that a little bit, but it was because they did take some time in setting that up and helping me understand. And I don't think that's something you can do in just 1 5-minute flashback somewhere in the movie.
In any kind of movie where you've got like a huge team of people, if you're not doing it like the Marvel setup where everyone has their own movies ahead of time and you've already brought things in, you don't focus on as many characters. You need to zoom it down in and focus on a few characters that you want to develop and let the other ones kind of be the side characters. That way in the next movie you can give them more depth.
That's the thing, though, is that they do that. That not every character gets a full-blown arc and is entirely important, and yet some of them get those flashbacks anyway. The movie needs to drop like 3 or 4 characters. There are too many characters.
That's because somebody wasn't willing to say no, right?
But I don't think it's fair to say that just because the Marvel method worked well there that you have to introduce every character in their own movie first. I think this can be done. I think they just did it poorly.
I don't think that they have to. That's not what I was saying at all. It's just if you're not going to use that model where you're setting it up, then you can't spend the first movie developing your characters so much inside the movie because you're having the same experience you guys had, which is checking your watch and feeling like, oh, I just got dragged out. So
let's talk about some of the things that we liked in this movie. I really do think if you go into it with lower expectations, I think you can have some fun with some of this stuff. For me, I thought the performances were really good. I thought Will Smith was great. I thought Margot Robbie was phenomenal as Harley Quinn. I was just like, wow, what a performance. And just her line deliveries and that stuff alone was stuff that I thought was really good in this.
I liked the absurdity of it and that they didn't shy away from that.
That it's an absurd universe?
Yeah, and that they're not so self-important and they're not afraid of that. And it's jarring coming after the last one that they're doing that. Like even though it's a disjointed movie, it feels bolder and more sure of itself. But at the same time, it's tonally uneven. Like it's both of those things.
Yeah, it's interesting. The tone just felt like it would lock into something. You go, okay, this works. I love this scene. I love this segment, and then it would do something else, go to a different place. And I felt a little bit of the fingerprints of like. Do you feel like they shot new scenes? I don't know anything about kind of.
No, they did. They did. Yeah,
it felt like
there was a big fiasco about that, where people really worried that they were doing reshoots, and then David Ayer was like, nobody panic. We're just making the third act more cohesive or whatever. And people were afraid that it was Warner's. And the rumor for a minute was Warner's was like, this needs more humor, so they went and injected humor into it. And now we're hearing reports that may be actually really what did happen.
It feels like it.
I'm confused about that whole thing.
Well, I will tell you, without having heard those reports, that's what I thought had happened. Because there were scenes where just 2 characters would have, little words after a, big action scene or whatever. And I'm like, I bet that's a reshoot. There's nobody else in the scene. It's like a little tag, to make it a little lighter. The problem was most of the time they were just lame jokes. And it was like, I even tweeted this. I don't need DC to be funnier. Like, it's not like I need them to make me laugh. I just, what I need from DC that I see from Marvel is the ability to care for these characters in a real way. Like the ability to, like, it's joy, not laughs. I want some life in the movie. Even in a dark movie,
and you want characters to feel like real people.
Yeah.
What's for me, compared to BVS, they did.
Yeah, that's true. And compared
I hate that I walked out of a Suicide Squad movie and I felt more sympathy for the bad guys trying to be good guys than I did for Superman.
Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy in that way, but I also I thought the effects were pretty good. I thought there were some cool visualizations, very colorful, very interesting. Not something I'd seen a lot before, and I thought
directing
that part of it
was competent.
Yeah, for sure.
I read, and I don't know how true this is. Somebody left a comment on the review I did on this last night, and claimed that the re-edits before the movie came out in the theater were done by the people who made the trailers. Oh, really? Which is just wild if that's the case.
That's amazing.
I've never heard of anything like that. Yeah.
That's incredible.
I know you didn't watch the trailers, but I had the thing I do often with a thing like this because Warner's put so much out about this movie. They kind of veered into Sony territory with just how many things they showed in their trailer. Like every Joker scene you saw, and Joker scenes that were not in the movie we saw in the trailers. And I had that thing where I keep seeing things I recognize, and that keeps distracting me. Where I feel like I'm putting together a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
Instead of watching a movie, and that's really irritating.
It is. It's like they're trying to do something, but they don't have their feet under them enough yet for the foundation of it. It's like they're trying to figure out this expanded universe formula on the run, and it's just it's awkward at times. It's awkward to see.
Yeah, and they're doing and it's all knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is really important. Can I tell you my theory?
Sure, go ahead.
About Suicide Squad. I don't, and I said this in the review I posted last night. I don't know if this would have been, I'm saying this in retrospect, of course, I don't know if this would have been financially viable. You never would have thought to do this, but now in retrospect, after I've seen this movie, we should have led with this, with the DC extended universe, as they're calling it. This should have been the starting place, because the idea of, or maybe with a Batman movie, but the idea of we have such a cynical world that are trying to save us, are using superpowered bad guys that they're attempting to control with a bomb in their head, and then later we get the Justice League and we discover optimism, is a really good idea.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Start in a dark place and let the light come in. Yeah, I can totally see that. I did want to talk to Danae a little bit, because I know one of your favorite comic book characters, at least growing up, was Harley Quinn.
So true.
So if you hadn't...
Although, let's just pause for a moment, because Poison Ivy and her, I can't... It's just hard. It's hard to
between
decide.
Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn?
Yes. I love them both.
So what would you want from a Harley Quinn character in a movie like this? Once she's on the big screen, what does she need to be for you to live up to kind of why you liked her and why you were interested in her?
If I went to go see this movie and she was something different, it would be really upsetting.
What were your expectations?
Well, something about Harley is just her attitude. She's constantly just having this crazy fun, crazy time. That she's in this total, not reality, and always big, bright, shiny eyes, and having a good time doing crazy, crazy stuff. She's just nuts. She's just freaking nuts. I love her.
That they nail.
Good.
Yeah, for sure.
What they don't nail is what the Joker-Harley Quinn relationship is.
Yeah, tell me about that, because I was really put off by their relationship, and I don't think that was the intent. I thought they were trying to make it romantic, and I didn't buy it for a second. I thought it was just...
Between two psychopaths? You don't buy a relationship? That's weird.
No. I buy that they have some sort of messed up relationship, but they were trying to make... It just felt like they were trying to make it a romance. And I was just like... No, thank you. I don't know. It was really weird to me.
Yeah, and it's really confusing and inconsistent, because there's a flashback that kind of leads you to believe that it's more of the relationship from the comics where Joker would drop her like a bad habit, but then that's the opposite of that is what we're doing through the rest of the movie, so it's really confusing.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it has to be just like the comics. They could do a romance. I'm just confused as to what they think they're putting on the screen with that. So, if they had done something more traditional, and of course Danae would know this, you'd have a Harley Quinn that's in denial about the relationship she has with the Joker, where she's obsessed with him and enamored, and he manipulated her and created her and made her the way she is, and she thinks that they are soulmates, and he would, again, drop her at any point, and doesn't actually care anything about her. And that's not what they did.
It was a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B, though. There was some of that, but then there was also that it felt like it went both ways, and I don't know. His
entire purpose in the film is go try to grab her, and I don't ultimately at the end really know why that is. He's a big mystery, and not in the way you want the Joker to be necessarily. Like, I thought Leto's performance was fine, but I don't get enough of a handle on him, and I also feel like Warner's has made a giant mistake in not immediately telling us the next place we're going to see him, because that is going to disappoint people really hard.
Yeah.
Because they've sold the movie so hard on him.
Before we kind of shift gears, we've had a really active chat, and this is recorded with a live audience, as you heard at the beginning, so I was really interested to hear kind of some of their comments.
Sure.
So one of the things that was mentioned was by Spark967. I was surprised by how much I loved El Diablo, and Captain Boomerang was hilarious. Just when you guys talking about characters, was there any other character that really stood out to you guys?
Diablo is interesting. I liked him a lot. I thought Boomerang was disappointing.
Why would you say Boomerang? See, I don't know enough about these characters from the comics, obviously, but what made him disappointing to you?
And this is a thing, if I can real fast, this is a thing I wanted to bring up earlier because I think it's important. There's some fan filminess sense I get from this movie. Like a lot of DC fans that are really liking the DC movies from Man of Steel into BVS. I don't know about this one yet. With a lot of those folks are saying, well, it's not for you, it's for the fans. The problem is, I don't think this is a good introduction. Even though they take a long time to introduce characters, I don't think it's a great introduction. Sometimes Harley Quinn, it's fine, I think, for the most part. But for a lot of characters, it's not a great introduction to them for audiences that aren't already familiar. And, I'm trying to put myself in the headspace of people that don't know these characters already, and I can't imagine what kind of viewing experience they have.
It felt like a lot to try to figure out. The character of Boomerang seemed just like kind of a side character to me. Of all the characters, I think they did the least with his backstory. I mean, aside from the guy that climbs walls. I forget his name. Slipshot, maybe? Something like that?
Slipknot.
Aside from Slipknot, there was the least amount.
Isn't that a band?
Yes, it is.
They did the least amount of character development with him, so he just seemed like a funny oaf that, was good at throwing a boomerang.
Yeah, and the thing is, he's always been a really, obviously with his motif, silly kind of character, and in recent years, Jeff Johns and some other writers have made him in the comics really, really interesting, and we have a kind of badass version in Arrow. And so, in this universe, we're making such a big deal out of how super cool and awesome Aquaman is. It's very weird to get the jokey, silly Boomerang. That's okay. It's not a big deal. It's just, I like Boomerang's become a kind of fleshed out villain that I like a lot in the comics, and I was a little disappointed that they made him a one-note throwaway villain.
What were the guys, the bad guys, the rhinoceros or whatever, and Pig from Mutant Ninja Turtles? What?
Bebop and Rocksteady?
Yeah, Bebop and Rock. He reminded me of Bebop and Rocksteady. Like, it was just like one of those just oafy, crack a joke kind of characters, and which really didn't fit in with a lot of the other tone of the film, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't as over the top as the Mutant Ninja Turtle thing, obviously, but that's just kind of what it reminded me of.
Another thing from the chat, which was just about when we're talking about Harley Quinn, friend went to go see it, annoyed by Harley's story, relying on the Joker since new 52 Harley doesn't interact with the Joker all that much, which just is. I kind of wanted to bring that up because there's other material out there if you love Harley Quinn's character that you can find, but also this is episode 52 of SiftPop, so
That's right.
That just cracks me up so much. And we're doing Suicide Squad on your episode 52. That's fantastic.
So that was kind of fun.
What about, were there any other characters, Cap, that you wanted to bring to the forefront to talk about? We haven't even talked about the witch and the guy that, what was his name?
I mean, the witch is so throwaway. Enchantress. It's like I get the idea. Like thematically is kind of neat. Where like we fight pure evil to give you perspective that these characters actually still have humanity in them. But I don't think that ever comes out enough to the fore. And ultimately, it's just a really kind of stereotypical villain and kind of throwaway villain plot. Just kind of, unfortunate, especially by the third act, which gets really sappy out of nowhere, by the way.
What about the human characters? What about like Viola Davis as Weller and...
Waller is fantastic. She is straight off the page.
Okay.
And I hope we get... I hope she gets more to do. They could, in a really weird way, make her kind of the Nick Fury of their universe, and I hope that's what they do.
That's what it felt like to me. It felt like there was that amount to it. And then, of course, you've got Joel Kinnaman, who I loved in the TV show The Killing, and he's playing Agent something or other.
Are you talking about Rick Flag?
Rick Flag, yeah. Is that a character from the comics?
Yeah. And,
okay.
And he is, and has the role he usually does in the comics, yeah. He was okay. I mean, he was fine.
Yeah, I like him as an actor. I don't know necessarily that this part was anything too special.
It's a pretty generic version of Rick Flag, I thought.
Were there any characters in this that are not in the comics? Did they add anything? I mean, okay.
No, everything's from the comics. Katana should not be in this movie. She does not fit here at all. Oh
yeah, we haven't even talked about Katana. There were so many characters.
I don't know what she's doing. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Just drop a few. I liked Killer Croc a lot, performance wise and makeup wise. I thought he looked amazing. Killer Croc is Batman villain, and he just stands around and growls constantly. That's all he does. And when he does talk, he's really hard to understand. Because that guy has a really thick African accent.
Yeah.
And then you put that under that makeup, and I just have no idea what he's saying.
Well, there was that too. I almost felt like they needed subtitles a couple times for a couple of these characters, and I just missed lines. Like I couldn't understand.
Because I think he was played by the guy who played Mr. Echo in Lost. I think that's who that is.
Oh wow, I think you're right.
If memory serves.
Oh man, that's crazy. All right,
Isn't that crazy? But like at the end of the day, anybody could have played that role. But I thought he was pretty good.
All right, let's do one more thing before we wrap this up here. Is there one more thing you would want to tell the audience? And if you can't think of one more thing, maybe just would you recommend the movie?
I'll start. My one more thing is a thing I've had with the DC movies since Man of Steel. I want more humans. Like I feel like these movies lose us, and when I say us, I mean when you go see a superhero movie. Part of the fun for me is like, okay, here's how they're saving me. Here's what they're they've got me in mind. You look at the Marvel movies, like especially the Avengers movies. And there's always a real sense of humanity to them and what we're going through and what the world is like. And this movie especially seems so focused on these superheroes or supervillains that I didn't know where humanity was. Like, where was, the world in this movie?
But guys, where am I?
Exactly. You kind of want to see yourself in these movies and know, what's my role in this? And I just
that's a great point.
And I just don't feel like we know that with these movies very well. And so I feel disconnected from them in a lot of ways.
Well, my one more thing won't be profound at all. This is a thing I meant to mention earlier, which is really overkill with the popular music.
Yes.
It becomes really problematic, and you had all this music in the trailers, and people were wondering if any of that would be in the movie. And I found myself really hoping Bohemian Rhapsody and some of those things would actually make it into the movie, and they do. But it's just popular song after popular song, and you have to keep switching tonal gears, especially at the beginning. And then when you get to actual score, it's just bad. It's just bad score.
Yeah, I think that's a solid point.
In the chat, one more thing coming from Spark967. He said, in defense of the movie, it's not great and has almost zero story, but the action is good and I had fun with most of the characters. It dips into style over substance, but the style is so fun that I enjoyed the heck out of this movie.
Yeah, I did too. The problem is, for me, like with all the negative things I said, it's the best of what they've made so far. And, I mean, I used to love Man of Steel.
I was going to say, I like Man of Steel better.
Well, yeah, but then I had to live with that and do an analysis on it, and it broke my brain.
Well, let's wait till you have to live with this and do an analysis on it and see how it measures up at that point. Because, I think Caleb mentions, or Spartan9 mentions the lack of story. This is possibly the thinnest story I've seen in a movie this year. There is almost nothing to the actual foundation of this story. In fact, when we get into spoilers...
Yeah, that's fair.
When we get into spoilers, we'll talk more specifically about the, kind of the final... battle end of this movie. In my mind, there are such poorly defined stakes in this story that it's just that I had no real interest in knowing which way it was going to go because I didn't know what was going on. So,
and that's ironic with the sheer number of characters that are there.
Right, exactly.
And Deepak quoted Suicide Squad, the movie equivalent of early Britney Spears.
Wow,
that's deep.
The big question you got to ask yourself right now is this 3 strikes and you're out for DC?
No, they're too big. They're too big to fail. They'll keep pouring stuff out, and eventually they'll find I really think they'll eventually find their footing. I kind of hate all the Marvel versus DC stuff because...
Oh, no, I do too, and I'm not part of that. Understand?
Well, but you can't help but be... I mean, you can't help but be part of it in some ways.
Yeah, you're going to compare... like to like. And Marvel...
No, of course you're going to compare them, but you've got people that feel like they have to hate one to like the other, and that's preposterous.
Well, that's in politics, too. It's everywhere. That's just human culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people have politicized this stuff, and that's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Thanks to our Patreon supporters, that's how this podcast and others just like it on the Shoe the Dough Podcast Network exist. It's by our fans, so thank you for giving monthly at patreon.com/shoethedough. Your $1 a month helps us to not only do this podcast, but the Shoe the Dough podcast and others like New Music Digest.
I know a lot of times it's easier for this kind of stuff just to kind of fly right over the head and just be like, yeah, I know, this is how you do what you do, blah, blah, blah. But I'd like you to really think about just $1 or even $3 every single month to know that a podcast like this can keep going. Possibly more podcasts can come on the way, that kind of stuff.
Crowdfunding, okay?
So it is the way we do what we do, and so we'd really appreciate your help, and thank you so much for those who do support.
Again, that's patreon.com/shoethedough. You can also find quick links at aaronanddanae.com, which is one of the websites that Aaron and I put out some of those other things we do besides podcasting, including radio and sock puppets.
Patreon.com/shoethedough. And thank you so much for your support of what goes on here.
There really aren't any sock puppets, though.
Thanks, Danae. I appreciate you.
I just didn't want somebody to go to the site trying to look for it,
So let's move on to talk a little bit about the critical response to Suicide Squad. And not just that, but our own response to criticism of things we love or the movies we like. There's actually some sort of petition you can sign to get Rotten Tomatoes shut down because they hate DC movies. How is that a thing, Cap? How is that a thing?
First of all, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way when I say this. I hate that we're giving that coverage. I hate that. I hate that that's trending, that everyone's talking about it. Do you realize, and I don't know where it is now, do you realize that when that first started, like, people are talking about it just because it's so preposterous, right?
Right, yeah.
Like when I first saw that, the petition had 400 signatures. Like, I can't put out a video on YouTube, get 400 views, and it become national news.
That's a great point.
I think what's bothersome for me is this is part of our culture where news and media try to just find blood in the water and exploit it and expose it because they have to be talking about something all the time. And rather than letting
what ends
a movie...
up happening is we pretend like this is a bigger problem than it is. Like, that is a really, really vocal minority.
And it's like, it's the culture that we live in. This is clickbait culture. If the movie's not getting good reviews, then it's like, okay, figure out why. Dig in there and find it. It's like, oh, well, maybe it's because, of this over here. And then you just start to exploit all the quote-unquote negative things. And even mentioned during the chat where, like, why are we caring about there being reshoots, that's like a normal thing.
Right, yeah.
This is another example of just, our culture. Oh, there's a little bit of blood leaking out in the water, and here come all the sharks just trying to figure out how to rip it apart.
That is a normal thing. It's just in this particular case, now that we've seen the movie, it does look like that might have actually hurt it. But before that, it's not necessarily something we should have been talking about.
Exactly. That's my first point is, can we please go back to where we talk about things after we've experienced them?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we're wasting a lot of time doing that. Like, I will do speculation videos and things sometimes, and I fall into this trap because people are constantly interested to know what I think about a trailer or whatever, but man, I'm doing less of it because it feels like a waste of time after a while.
It really does, and it's like a rush to have the first opinion, right? It's like, because we're in such an immediate culture, the person who comes out with their opinion first oftentimes gets the most, attention, those kind of things, and I just refuse to be a part of it. That's part of, not seeing the trailers. I go into movies, even some of the bigger ones, not knowing anything about where that movie is headed because I want to experience it and then have a reaction to it. And
you want the people who are making the movie to like you.
No, it really has nothing to do with that.
I'm just kidding.
I just want to have a good storytelling experience.
That's how I feel. I want to experience it like they wanted me to. So I try, not to consume too much media over something before, we go in. And then it gives you that platform to, on the other end, know that your opinion is truly based on your own individual experience before you see how people, in this internet culture of connectivity, all act.
To be honest, I think I fight a little bit of bitterness in, that's probably too strong of a word, but in how much attention reaction videos to trailers, trailer reviews, And
it's who does it first.
Yeah, and I get a little bit like...
You know what this is like?
There's not always merit.
Do you know what's happening?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what's happening right now?
What's happening?
What's happening in movie culture right now is the reviews and the information all coming out early. It's like Halloween candy being in the store right now. It's a type of marketing that is just like really annoying. Like, I don't want to be thinking about this right now. I haven't even gotten to autumn yet. Why am I having to look and think about these things?
Yeah.
It's like the first person to do it is the one that gets the attention, the clicks, the likes, and rather than it just being built on what, somebody watching it. That's why Chewbacca lady was so popular. One of the reasons she was so popular is that was a genuine, kind of moment that just came out. It wasn't something that it was just everyone's like piling on it going, you have to do this, you have to do this. People watched it. They had a genuine reaction, and then it kind of went viral. Everyone's trying to make virality all the time, and it's just too much. We don't need the Halloween stuff. We don't need to see Christmas stuff in stores right now. We don't. Like, let us just be in our moment. It's still August.
I really do feel like there is... Tell me what... I would love to hear what you guys think of. I think today we've talked about this, but Cap, I don't know if you and I have talked about this. I think there is money to be made from a movie company that comes out and says, we are going to do a zero marketing for our movies. We're going to make them. We're going to give, creative control. And we're going to let people put out films, and then our whole shtick will be when you sit down in the theater... You will know nothing about the story you're about to be told, other than the important things of like what kind of content you might expect, so that you don't go see a horror movie when you don't like horror movies, that kind of thing. But other than that, you're going to be told a story. I think there's a place for a movie company to step into a gap and say, no trailers for our movies. What do you guys think about that?
I think what you have to do instead then is all viral. I think you still have to market your movie. I don't think there's any expecting people to go see it if they don't know what's happening, obviously. So you have to do something, and like this worked really well with Cloverfield, and then 10 Cloverfield Lane. The idea of not even letting anybody know the movie was being made until a month before it came out. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
That was an amazing strategy. And yes, then there were trailers, but they didn't show you very much. You didn't really know too much about what was going on. And so I think Aaron, your idea is a really good one, but you still have to market your movie.
There's a great comment in the chat, and I just think, what? Maybe Netflix already kind of does this. You think about Stranger Things. I didn't see a Stranger Things trailer.
sleeper drops. But the thing is, you can get away with that if you're Netflix because you already have your built-in clientele. It's just there.
Right.
You don't have to hope people will go out to the theater and give you money. The money is there.
I also like that Curious Low in chat said Frozen kind of did that. They only had trailers that featured Olaf until after the movie came out. So there are people who do like to work with that medium.
In movies,
I like the idea, and I think you can do this with things that aren't just comedies and cartoons, and we should be doing more of that. She's absolutely right. What if you had more trailers that were just a sketch?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's not even in the movie.
That's what movies...
it just makes you want to go see it. Do that with horror. You can have a horror sketch.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, trailers used to be more like that. In fact, a lot of older trailers were the director or the actors telling you, hey, here's what my movie's going to be about, don't want to give too much away. Why don't you come, see it? There are some Hitchcock trailers like that.
And then you don't have to worry about stupid stuff like here's all the stuff in the trailer that didn't actually make it into the movie.
Yeah.
And all of that. Because it really does affect our perceptions and our preconceptions too much.
And then also mentioned is another opinion. We need a little marketing so people can know what to spend their money on. I'd love to see every movie, but I can't afford it. So that trailers do help me pick and choose. And that's another really good point,
But
too.
are they really a good way? Are trailers really a good indication if you're going to enjoy a movie or not?
Not even a little bit.
I think they're manipulative. I constantly find, and this is true for television stuff, too, all the little commercials that kind of played as to give you a heads up on what's happening in the next episode of Australia's Next Top Model.
Which legitimately is a show that Danae's watching right now.
I am watching that one right now. That is absolutely something that I've done. They constantly try to manipulate you and show you some kind of a drama or show you some kind of an emotion so you want to watch and you're compelled, and then you watch because you're compelled and it unravels differently, or it's just all manipulation. It's some kind of an emotional manipulation. So which is one of the reasons,
In most almost every trailer makes the movie it's about look amazing. There's so many times I've seen an amazing trailer when I was watching them and gone to the movie and been like, that's not the movie that was in the trailer. Or
and then you find yourself going, well, if you could look at your movie, people making trailers are often different people, but if you can look at your movie and say, here's the movie people would really like to have seen, why didn't you just make that in the first place?
Teasers are sufficient. Don't need full trailers. That's another kind of comment.
Absolutely.
Amen.
And the
Absolutely.
Deepak kind of mentioned that in the chat.
That's exactly right. I think that's true. So I think that's part of the problem is the early response culture that we have affects a lot of things. But what we're talking about even more specifically with Rotten Tomatoes is how we use critical response to film or television or whatever in our own process these days, because I think that's continuing to evolve and change as well. And I'd be curious to know from both of you, do you check Rotten Tomatoes scores? When do you check them? What do they mean to you? Do you find it to be a good indication if you're going to enjoy something? Cap, let's start with you.
Thanks. I find them interesting only after the fact.
Why is that?
I want to see the movie and then find out what the consensus is. Because I want to make up my own mind, but also because, I do, so, that doesn't affect me except that I might think, okay, this movie might not be as good as I was hoping or whatever, and again, that's gonna affect your preconceptions even if you try to not let it. I hear people say this all the time, we're like, I'm not gonna let this affect me. Yeah, no, you read it. It does.
Yeah, you're human, yeah.
It does, but the thing is, those scores are just numbers and will not necessarily reflect what I think about a thing, especially because it's a bunch of it's statistics, right? It's all or nothing. People, the DC fans that are trying to shut down Rotten Tomatoes. Which, by the way, I love the idea that somehow or rather a petition could shut a whole company down. Oh man, 9,000 people don't like us. I guess we better close the doors. I don't understand that at all. It's hilarious to me. But anyway, but when you pull all those numbers together, all it is somebody writing a review, putting a thumb up or a thumbs down.
Right.
And you could be right on the cusp, which means if you have a movie like Suicide Squad. And, a lot of people are sandblasting that, so that's not a great example. But let's say you have a movie where people are really on the cusp, and it's got 35% on Rotten Tomatoes, but when you read the reviews, everybody's just like, this movie is lackluster.
Yeah.
They're not freaking about how bad it is. Yeah, that's why you need to look at the content and not just the number.
Yeah, I think there's a separate conversation to be had about if Rotten Tomatoes uses a good system, which I don't think they do. For me, I compare my own thoughts to Rotten Tomatoes after the fact. Like after I've done a review, I'll go look and see kind of what other critics are saying. And if a movie is between the 20% and the 80% range, it means almost nothing. Like there's almost no way to know for sure, how you're going to feel about it. If it's in that 80 to 100% range, those are the great, those really are generally the great movies. And if it's under 20%, those generally are, movies that aren't made that well.
And some people say just look at the audience score because that's more indicative. But like I don't want to get myself into trouble when I say this, but I think culturally we've lowered our standards real hard, and I don't know that I agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, it's because we're really close to the apocalypse, so. That's part of that. Whenever I watched movies and I didn't watch them on opening day and there was time to go and look at people's reviews before I would go see it, which was most of my life before doing kind of the more intensive SiftPop this last year or two. I don't even think that I usually would go to rating systems, and Caleb in the chat said it really well, said, I see value in individual opinions and not generalized ratings.
Agree.
And that is exactly what I was trying to kind of conceptualize, because I would go to blogs of people who had seen the movie, and they would usually say something really nice at the beginning, like, I'm going to try not to spoil, talk about kind of generally my reaction, and then they would give okay, I'm going to go into more detail, here's my spoilers. I like that because I can still go and maybe see the movie and have a better understanding of what I'm getting into. It's kind of like, I don't want to go to a restaurant all the time and sit down and have a surprise meal that is going to completely jack up my system. I want to be smart about it. I want to look and see what the ingredients are before I go sit down.
Yeah.
So similarly, that's kind of usually would be more personal opinion than anything else.
Rotten Tomatoes has shifted the way we look at critical response in a very, I believe, a negative way. And I know this is this kind of serves myself a little bit in saying this, but I really believe it's true. When you lose the personal voice of the critic, like the individual personal voice, you lose the ability to know when you would disagree with them. The reason it's important to, I think, have someone you can look to specifically is you can go, oh, that person, I know I agree with them on this kind of movie, I disagree with them on this kind of movie, and you get to know who they are and how they see movies, and so you get a better understanding of how you're going to interpret a movie. I don't see my job as...
And that's the whole reason we should have multiple critics.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason that it can't necessarily be too oversaturated.
Yeah, but you've got to create your own panel based on what you're looking for yourself, because you're going to view media different than somebody else, and that's a very individual thing. But most people don't want to spend time creating a relationship with their media sources. They just want an instant feedback, and they're looking for that one number or that one grade that can get them what they want. And that's why systems are created. And you guys, you media lover people, you guys make lists all the time.
Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes is just a website that compiles all your guys' lists the best way that they know how.
Right.
Do you know? And maybe there's a better way. And Curious Love brought up that Letterboxd has an infinitely better system for rating films. So there's other maybe potential choices out there for people to go to rather than places like Rotten Tomatoes if that's just not working for you. But people who love consuming media love making lists of their favorites and why. And at mass, when you put all of you guys together, there's going to have to be some kind of an intercommunicative system.
Sure.
So those are just my thoughts.
The argument could be made that the system isn't terrible, it's just abused and misused. Or if you just look at that number as a because what people do is they go, oh, it's 32%, it's a bad movie, and they haven't seen it, or it's 97%, it's a good movie, and they just the consensus is all that matters. But if you look at that number and you go, I'm gonna wait to see the 32% rated movie until people I know and trust have seen it, that's useful.
Yeah, exactly. You need to create, that kind of group. And for me, I have
you just got to use it correctly.
Yeah, and I have some people that'll tell me, and Aaron, you're one of them. Yeah, maybe don't go see that one. That one's maybe not yours.
Right, for instance, I loved The Shallows. I thought The Shallows was a surprisingly good, suspenseful movie. Not a perfect movie, but surprisingly good. But I told Danae, don't ever see that movie because...
Sharks.
Because it has sharks in it, and I know how much that...
Wait, did it really?
Yeah.
Oh. I was joking. Okay, great. All right, moving on. Oh, crap.
Wow, you guys know each other way too well.
I got there real quick in my mind. Well, it was also mentioned in chat earlier. I said something about, sharks in the water.
Laser sharks!
So that's just too much attention to sharks.
I do think it's sad that the main place, and am I wrong in saying this? I really feel like Rotten Tomatoes is the go-to place to know whether critics like or don't like a movie. I think it's sad because I do think that system is broken. Yes, you can use it in a valuable way, but for instance, if I was on that panel, which I'm not, but if I was, I would give Suicide Squad a rotten as opposed to a fresh. Did I hate it? No. I gave it a C-, probably in the 71, 72% range if you're going to go, percentage. But according to them, I gave it a 0%.
That's interesting.
It's
so
just
one or the other?
Yeah, that's all.
Oh, let's talk about rotten fruit for a second, just as an example. If you grab a tomato and it's rotting, but you're like really like still willing to eat part of it, you cut out the stuff you don't like and you still consume the good part of the fruit. They're not accounting for that.
That's exactly right.
That's the problem.
Oh my God, your analogies. I love your analogies.
And my analogies love you.
The baby's getting thrown out with the bathwater.
But Aaron, you're absolutely right, and I love that you said that. And like I said, it's an all or nothing thing, and that's a problem. But I think it is because their system is the same as it's always been. So why is it more of a problem now?
It's not
because of stupid things like the fresh rating on DVD and Blu-ray covers.
Yeah, because it's become the thing.
Knock that off.
Yeah.
But
get rid of that.
It's just something where people there's so much more gray than just yes or no. And so you have a lot of people who are trying to like rage against that system because they're standing in the fringes going, but even though it's a Rotten Tomato, it's still something to go see and consume because there's something there for fans or for whatever.
Certified fresh is as useful to me as, quotes, electrifying.
Electrifying.
It doesn't tell me anything.
Yeah, I'll give as we head on to our final
buried treasure.
I will give one more shout. I'll give a shout out to the BFCA. If you go to criticschoice.com and look at the ratings they have for movies there, that is about 250 critics, including myself, across the nation, and it is averaged by actual score. So it's not just a binary choice. And I think they do a pretty good job of kind of indicating what critics in general feel about a film. So I will give a shout out to that.
And as we move on to Buried Treasure, we'll take one final quote from our live audience. This movie is rotten, but it's worth throwing up for. Thank you, BDG.
Let's do some Buried Treasure. Danae, why don't you kick us off?
Okay, well, we have an app or we have a TV show. Which one do you want to go with?
I'm always going to pick the TV show.
What?
What about you, Cap? An app or a TV show?
No, you got to go for app because of the killer app line in Suicide Squad.
What's the killer app line?
Well, that would be a little bit of a spoiler, a very tiny spoiler. It's a line in the movie. So
okay, well I'll go with an app then.
There's a line where she says killer app. That's not a big spoiler. You don't know where it is.
That's true.
I'm sorry.
As somebody who's on the other side, I literally have no idea what you're talking about, and it doesn't faze me. That's kind of nice.
I just meant if I explained it, it would be a tiny little spoiler. Tell us about your new app, Danae.
So my brother talked to me about Summoner's War. Do you play that game, Captain? Summoner's War?
No.
Okay. So this is like a turn-based game, but what was really significant about it is that it took 30 minutes to download onto my Note 4.
Whoa!
It's probably the longest time anything's had to download onto my phone.
That is a big app.
Yeah. So once it started to download, it took like a while. And then afterwards, my phone was on for a good 15 minutes where it was just doing updates. So this is a huge, massive game. And once I got into playing it, I understood, maybe why.
Is it the graphics amazing?
Yeah, good graphics, but the game has so much going on. It's like a very in-depth game. It reminds me, it's a turn-based, you kind of like level up your characters and you can mix and match people who have different abilities.
Like a turn-based RPG?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. You go and dungeon crawl, you fight other people.
Like Mario and Luigi?
You combine your monsters to make more, like stronger army monsters. You have runes that make you even stronger. And so it's like there's so much, and everything has something else that can go on to it too. So it's very much a learning curve. But whenever I open up this game, I end up spending like 10, 15 minutes playing this game. And for most of my other games, it's way more casual than that. It doesn't take that much time. So I would say it's really well done. Takes up a lot of room on your phone, and there's a lot of different ways to get involved with it. It actually kind of reminds me of World of Warcraft in a way, because you have a guild, you have conversations that you can have, you're collecting things, there's daily quests. So it's a big game, but it's done really well and mobile. And again, it's called Summoner's War.
I'm never a big fan of RPGs, but I did love like the Paper Mario series, and that's turn-based combat. So I kind of get the appeal of it, but I just haven't gone beyond, my Nintendo universe on that stuff.
I like big apps and I cannot lie. Thanks for that one in the chat. Thank you for that.
What about you, Cap?
Well, today, I want to talk about a book I just bought. So it's Star Trek's 50th anniversary, and I was really worried that Paramount would drop the ball on 50th and on merchandising and stuff, and there has been a lot of really cool stuff this year. And I bought a trivia game the other day. Finally, I've got a trivia game that has Enterprise questions, and there hadn't been one yet, so that's really cool. And it's shaped like a shuttlecraft, so that's really cool. But I bought a book from National Geographic, of all things, called Star Trek: The Official Guide to Our Universe, and it's a textbook about real science within the context of Star Trek.
Interesting.
And it's kind of fantastic. So, especially if you really know your Star Trek, but you're not very good at science, like me, and this is a book that contextualizes it within something that I like a lot, so suddenly, like, real science concepts make more sense to me.
So you feeling like you're actually learning something at the same time as you're studying an entertainment thing that you love?
Yeah.
You're being tricked into learning because of your nerdiness love of Star Trek.
Yeah, it's great, and the other thing it does for me is because I'm big into Star Trek reference, and I eat up everything I can. And the other nice thing about it, on the fan side, as a Star Trek fan, is it helps me to figure out what stuff is real science in episodes and shows and dialogue, and what is just technobabble.
Oh, interesting. So it's helping you kind of distinguish between the nonsense.
What's the ratio between actual applicable physical stuff and science stuff? And just babble.
I don't know. It depends on the show. I mean, like, if you pulled all of it together, it's probably like 40, 60. But like it depends on the show. I mean, like original series in TNG probably do it a little bit better than some of the others. But like, and I'm not real far into this book yet. But there are like terms and things in here where I'm like, oh, I thought that was just a Star Trek thing. That's an actual real thing. Okay.
Cool.
That's awesome. All right, for my buried treasure, I'm going to do a book as well. I am actually reading Game of Thrones. I started the first Game of Thrones book after being so into the TV series, and I think I'm a little more than halfway through the first book. I think there's 4 out so far. And I got to tell you, it is surprising me how good this material is. Like, I don't know what I was expecting. I guess I was expecting more like, lowest common denominator stuff, but it's really intelligent. It's really well done. And I think I got that opinion from watching the show because there's so much, it's notorious for sex and violence and that kind of stuff. And in the book, that stuff is kind of touched on, but it's not explicit in the way, at least yet, that I've gotten to, that the TV show is. And that was kind of surprising to me. And I'm actually enjoying really kind of reliving that first season of the show.
Well, the great thing about the books is that the first book and the first season of the show are really mirrored very well.
Yeah, I'm loving that.
I'm really loving that. The story shifts and changes. There are 5 books right now.
Okay. And
he's still working on whatever he's got to do. We're just...
For book number 6?
Make it through. GRR.
So I don't know if it qualifies as buried treasure. It's obviously something people know about, but I don't think a lot of people give a lot of consideration to reading. They think the material is going to be too complex and maybe it would be if I hadn't already seen the show. I wonder about that too. I wonder if I'm able to zone in on who these characters are because I already know them from the show.
Yeah.
Whereas if I had been reading the book, I might be a little bit confused about who is that again?
Or it's a lot. It's a lot to think about because he develops this entire, world.
So maybe what I'm saying is it's been a really interesting way to relive the show. Is to kind of see it through the written text. So something
Lo agrees with you that it's way easier to read once you've seen the show. For me, I love the books and, the characters that he does a great job, in my opinion, of developing all of that because there's so many complex characters. I'm glad you're reading it. Personally.
One of the interesting things is, at least this far through the first book, every chapter is just the name of somebody. It's just, Caitlin or Eddard or whatever, and it just tells the story from their
perspective.
Or Mukau, yeah, and it just tells the story from Mukau's perspective, for that chapter. And I don't know, it's just a really effective way of telling that story. And simple, but I thought genius. So
Simple but genius.
that's my quote. Put it on the book.
Don't put simple but genius. It's not a simple book. It's
No.
super complex. What are you talking about? Simple makes it sound like you're reading some sort of like nighttime
Good
book
night,
to your
Moon.
kids. Good night, Moon. That's
Yeah,
a
I was
simple
waiting
book.
for you to use the word simple and intrigue in the same sentence. I was just waiting for that.
There's a warning in chat to not get too attached to Moo Cow, which I think is hilarious.
That's awesome.
Good night, Moo Cow. Also mentioned. You guys are great.
Thanks so much for joining us for SiftPop today. SiftPop is part of the Shoe the Dough podcast network. You can find out more about it and other live and later shows on the network by following the feed at mixlr.com/shoethedough. That's mixlr.com/shoethedough. Huge thanks to today's guru, Captain Logan from Geekvolution. Captain, you got anything that you want to plug?
Yeah, so Geekvolution, youtube.com/Geekvolution. We've got live shows, 2 live shows every week. Sunday night at 8 Central Time, it's Geeks Not Nerds Live. We do a conversation about random geeky topics and all insightful and intellectual and stuff. And then we rant about things and we complain. And then on Mondays, The Curious Low and I at 10 p.m. Central Time do Comic Book Late Night, where we count down our favorite 3 comic books from last week. And daily content every day, reviews, conversations, all kinds of fun stuff.
Also, much love and gratitude to our Patreon supporters for giving monthly to make the show and others on the Shoe the Dough Network possible. Support starts at $1 a month, comes with some pretty fun perks. You can find more at patreon.com/shoethedough. Also, if you have a podcast or know of a podcast that you'd like to see on the network, let us know. All feedback is welcome at aaronanddanae@gmail.com.
Boots and cats and 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 boots and cats. Man, I lost.